Good evening, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. So if you've got your food and your drinks, if you'll settle in. Thank you all for being here. It's really exciting to see all of your faces. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. If everyone could take their seats. Good evening, everyone. My name is Kelly Falaise, and I am the CAAR Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee Chair. On behalf of CAAR and the DEI Committee, welcome to Equity in Motion, a Fair Housing Symposium. Thank you. We can't thank you enough for being here with us. We've been working on this event for quite some time, and it's so amazing to see all of your faces here and supporting us. I want to give a quick shout out to Allie. She's amazing. You guys know that, but she has orchestrated this event to like a T, and it is beautiful, and we are so grateful for her. So we love you. For your safety is top of mind. Therefore, in case of an emergency, I want to point out the closest exits. Exit. In addition to the 2 exit doors located in the ballroom, which lead you to the side parking lot, we have 4 doors immediately outside this room leading out to the terrace. Once on the terrace, you will follow the walkway around the building back to the front parking lot. You can also exit the ballroom and pre-function area and leave the way you came in through the front doors. Before we begin our program, we want to say that everyone is welcomed, accepted, celebrated, encouraged, and respected here. It is important for us to create a safe environment where we can listen, to understand, and learn from one another. At this time, I would like to thank and acknowledge our wonderful sponsors for this program. Our presenting sponsor is Virginia Housing. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Frank. And supporting sponsor, Gray Fox Mortgage. Tammy's here. Thank you for being here. At this time, I would like to invite Frank Webster of Virginia Housing to share a few words.
So, good evening. I am thrilled to be here tonight. My goal each week or each month is to be in Charlottesville as many times as I possibly can. I've been here back-to-back days, and I actually went home to Roanoke in between. So I have been driving a lot today or this week to get to see you guys. But anyway, Virginia Housing, we are fully committed to the cause of fair housing, and we have committed to support CAAR in all of their DEI activities. So we have been very involved in supporting you financially. And every time that there's an event, I've told Abby, you just call me. You don't need to even advertise that you need anybody else. Just call me directly and we'll take care of it. But in addition to that, Virginia Housing is the state housing authority. We've been around for 54 years, and that we work in conjunction with the private market. We work in conjunction with local lenders, realtors, nonprofit organizations, and such to fully support affordable housing. The way we primarily do that is that first-time homebuyers have a lot of challenges. Even repeat homebuyers have a lot of challenges. So Virginia Housing has developed a significant number of programs that can be paired up with the first mortgage programs used to purchase homes. And each of those products, each of those specialty programs will help solve a problem or help the borrower overcome an obstacle that might be delaying them from purchasing a home or just flat out preventing them from purchasing a home. So borrowers, first-time homebuyers especially, many times they're very well qualified homebuyers. They have good jobs, they have good income, they have good credit. They just simply don't have enough money to close for down payment and closing costs. And that's where we excel. We are probably the #1 source of assistance in that area. We helped 6,000 households get into a home last year, and 98% of those 6,000 households got some form of down payment or closing cost assistance from us. So that is just a great way to blow out the obstacles. Thank you. And the other thing that we do is we have programs that are available to help lower the interest rates for the home buyers. We have a program called Spark, which we work with Piedmont Housing on that in this local area. Your borrower who's getting the mortgage from a local lender, they're getting our down payment or closing cost assistance. If they work with Piedmont Housing and get that 1% reduction in their rate, they would get that 1% reduction in the rate. If the rate would have been 6, it lowers the rate to 5%. That's over the entire lifetime of the loan. That can be paired up with the down payment assistance. So you're helping the borrower get into the house for less money, and you're helping them have a lower monthly payment too. And we have an even newer program than that called First Home Dream. This is for generational first-time home buyers. A generational first-time home buyer is a home buyer who has not owned a home, and their parents before them have not owned a home. If that is the profile of the person that we're working with, we'll give them a 2% reduction in the interest rate. 6 would become 4 as the rate is concerned. And on a $300,000 house, that lowers the payment by $325 a month. Significant. And again, you can combine those together. We can help the borrower get into the house for less money and have them help them have a lower monthly payment too. So like you can see, we are we're relevant. We're in the middle of everything that you're doing, and I hope that you would reach out to Virginia Housing, call me sometime, and I'd like to have conversations with as many people as possible. Beyond that, I just hope everyone has a good time tonight and that everybody benefits from the presentations that are going to be made. I think that this is going to be a stellar night for Fair Housing, and I'm just looking forward to hearing everything and experiencing everything that's going to go on. So have a good time tonight.
Thank you, Frank. If you haven't had a chance to connect with these sponsors, please do so before you leave today. I would also like to thank Virginia Realtors who supported this event through a $2,500 diversity grant. We are honored to have Leslie Frazier, Senior Vice President of Community and Industry Relations with VAR, join us this evening. Leslie, thank you for being here. We're excited to share all the proceeds from this event will support the efforts of the Building Goodness Foundation. They're out here in the corner here if you haven't stopped by their table. Please welcome Courtney Polk, Executive Director, to the stage as she shares the organization's impact on our community.
Awesome. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having us here. As she said, my name is Courtney Polk, and I'm Executive Director at Building Goodness Foundation. We are so grateful to CAAR and to the DEI Committee for selecting us as the beneficiary of this event. This is an awesome evening. So good to see all of you. So BGF supports housing equity and affordability in Charlottesville by working with homeowners who have urgent home repair needs and they don't have the resources to meet those needs. Our model is to partner with local professional builders and volunteers who donate their time and their expertise to complete these construction projects so that homeowners pay nothing. It is completely donated to have these home repairs done. So in the last few weeks, we've worked with a few families, and I just want to share a couple of stories with you. We're working with an elderly woman who is living in a home that was purchased by her grandparents in the early 1900s. And so yeah, it's an old home, and back then it was a white neighborhood, and this is not a white family. And so there were a lot of challenges, but her grandparents had a vision for this house, and it was that this home would be the hub, would be the central location for their family for generations to come together and to celebrate and to be a family. And true enough, the home continues to be the central location for this family for generations. We've got nieces, nephews, uncles, aunties, 200 cousins in this family right now are coming and going out of this central hub. And the home needed a lot of work, a new porch, bathroom, flooring, ceiling. And BGF and our construction partners were able to cover the work so that the legacy that was put in place over 100 years ago can continue for the next 100 years. Yes. And we're working with another elderly woman who lives in the same house that she grew up in. And she shared story after story after story of living in this neighborhood, on this street, in this house, including stories of running to the neighbors and stealing eggs from their chicken coop to make mud pies. Ugh. And so a huge tree had fallen on her house. And just to get the tree off the house was going to cost $4,000. Just to get the tree off. And that's not counting a new roof and the housing repairs for her home. You all have seen these houses. You know these stories. You have personal stories. In 2025, BGF partnered with nearly 100 local builders and design companies. We're talking Beck Cohen, W.E. Brown, Senvar Roofing, Valley Roofing, AmRamp, NOLA Builds, so many more, who came together and donated their time to provide home repairs for 56 local homeowners. That's what we did last year, 56 homes. Anyone want to take a guess at how much it costs us to do home repairs for 56 homes? $1 million, right? When most of the labor and the management was donated, $80,000. $80,000. That's less than $1,500 a home. And moreover, that's 56 families who don't become an affordable housing statistic. So thank you. Thank you for having us here. Thank you for your partnership. And thank you for all of the companies that donate and volunteer your time, because we could not do this work otherwise. I'm here with Kayla. We're out here in the corner. We would love to talk with you, swap stories, and talk more about partnerships to continue this work. Thank you.
Thank you, Courtney. In addition to Courtney Building Housing Foundation, you've got 5011 Winery out there in the corner. They're fabulous, from Loudoun County. If you've not stopped by to meet Kendra and her team, they're fabulous. So please do that. We've also got Smooth Moving. Okay. Yeah, also by the wine. We're excited. April is Fair Housing Month. As realtors and industry partners who support and strengthen the real estate profession, it is essential that we continue to champion fair housing. This year's symposium centers meaningful and necessary conversations around the barriers that continue to impact Black and African American communities. If you haven't already participated in our interaction walls outside, History, Voices, and Actions, please do so during the break or before you leave. We have some meaningful questions for you to reflect on, as well as some think pieces for you to review. Following the panel discussion, we will come together to celebrate culture and connection with great food, refreshing drinks, and line dancing, all from local Black and African American businesses, creating space for both reflection and community. We sincerely appreciate the collaboration with the following businesses. Exhibitor and newest car affiliate, Smooth Moving. Back in the back here, Orlando. Entertainer, Reggie Watts, People's DJ. Caterer with this delicious food in the back, Royalty Eats. Lemonade and sweet tea provided by Dem Keys Boys. I don't know if Thomas is here. And wine vendor 5011. We are so thrilled about your participation with us, and we look forward to getting to know you better. At this time, we will move into the panel discussion of our program. Our speakers' pictures and bios are available to read in the pre-function area, so please take a minute and look over those. We are extremely thankful to have the following community contributors with us tonight. Please join me on stage as I call your name. Jada Howard, Community Engagement Coordinator with Piedmont Community Land Trust. Joy Johnson, Chair of Public Housing Association of Residents. Tasia White, Director of Program Management and Strategic Initiatives with Piedmont Housing Alliance. And Jordy Yeager, Director of Digital Humanities with Jefferson School African American Heritage Center. To facilitate our discussion, we are honored to have two CAAR members, Roxanne Carter-Johnston, who is a CAAR board member, the board liaison to the DEI committee, as well as the president of the Piedmont Housing Alliance board. And S. Lisa Herndon, who is CAAR past president and the first African-American president of our association, as well as the president of the National Association of Real Estate Brokers Realtist Board of Charlottesville. The audience does have the opportunity to ask questions during the panel discussion. We encourage engagement and participation. If you have a question, please write it on the index card and raise your hand for staff to collect. It will be read aloud by one of our co-facilitators. We also have some informational and thoughtful handouts in your seat. This session is being recorded and will be made available on CAAR's YouTube channel. Roxy and S. Lisa, I hand the event over to you both.
I was about to say, I don't have a microphone. Well, welcome everyone. We truly appreciate your participation. It says a lot about your willingness to listen, to learn, and to show up. So thank you. Would you please give yourself a round of applause? We are going to, Roxy and I, as co-facilitators, will go through. We're going to pitch questions back and forth to each other so that they can ask the panelists. And we are looking for honest questions, answers, so that the audience can truly learn and move forward the DEI aspect of housing specifically. So when we ask you a question, please, I know we provided the questions prior to, but please, we would like to have honest answers. If we give scripted answers, then we don't move the needle forward, correct? I didn't hear y'all, correct? Okay, thank you. Joy said, that's why my paper is over there. So, oh, she asked you to get it. Okay. So we want to get answers that help move the needle so that we, especially as real estate professionals, will better understand when we're dealing with clients, and especially understanding the history of Charlottesville. And we have clients of color, what their restrictions, what their mindset might be just from growing up here in Charlottesville. So I'm going to ask the first question. Tasia, you're looking at me. You will not have the first question. She like, woo. I'm going to respectfully ask Jada and Joy to think about this question and to provide an answer. And I'm going to be focusing on the personal journey and lived experiences. Can you share a personal story, your own or from someone you've served, that can capture what it feels like to try to buy a home in Charlottesville as a person of color?
You want me to go first? Okay, so I grab the mic. So I'm going to go first. So I'm going to do the personal experience about myself. So as a woman of color and with two young sons, I tried to purchase a home that was just it just wasn't for me. And I didn't know the resources that was around here in Charlottesville because it just was not pointed out to me, or no one directed me to them. They just told me I can do it. What they didn't tell me was when I went to try to get the house, the lender told me that I needed $19,000 for a down payment of the home. Meanwhile, how was I going to take care of my family? And I had to depend on other things, rent, car payments, insurances, taking care of two young boys. How was I gonna put that in place? Impossible, simply impossible. So it just made me feel worthless. Like I cannot do this. No matter what they said to me, it wasn't attainable for me to do. So when you get to that point, you just give up, especially a person like myself, and just looking around at myself, you just give up. So what little that you did have saved up and the dream that you had, the great dream of owning a home, it just gets diminished. So that's just a personal experience of mine that I went through myself. So I made a promise to myself that dealing with Piedmont housing, I will not let anybody have that feeling that I felt again. I would do my best. And I'm going to make that one of the things that I do, because I do not want anybody to feel that way, the way I felt.
Thank you so much for sharing. And it's those stories that help move the needle because we feel it. Did you feel that in the room? Absolutely. And you working where you work can help bring along families. So I appreciate you. And Joy, I'm going to pitch that question to you. You remember it?
I'm gonna say it again. I think I remember it. I think I will just speak from the experience of just learning about buying a house. And growing up, everybody has that dream that one day they will own a home or whatever, but nobody really understand or, like you said, teach us about what it takes to buy a home. And so I went to a conference and the subjects were very boring. So I decided to go into an insurance class. And that's when I first learned about first time, not first time, it's when, a starter house. And I was like, a starter house? And he was like, yeah, a starter house. If you want a 5-bedroom house, that's your dream. You don't just go out and buy that 5-bedroom house. You get a starter house. You keep the equity in it. You sell it within that 30-year mortgage, and then you move somewhere else. And I was like, well, nobody told my mama that because my mom bought a house and lived in it for 30 years, paying the mortgage, but nobody. And so that's part of the reason why a lot of our folks, and for me, understood that you can start small and then get to your dream house. And so that's was my wake up call of trying to understand what we do. And so now that's what I talk to residents about. In public housing, I live in public housing. I am no longer public housing. My daughter bought a house and decided that I was coming with her. So I stalled for about a year. And so they decided that they were just gonna get a truck and move me. They both got together and got a truck. And so May the 31st, I moved into a house, but I still work for public housing residents. And so once I realized that, basically what I did was got with Habitat, because we had a lot of residents who wanted to be homeowners, but like Jada, they didn't have that down payment money. Their credit was bad and everything. And so Habitat was able to work with some of our residents to make them become first-time home buyers. So I gave you a personal, but I also gave you clients.
Joy, a lot of the panelists come with their own credentials, but Joy is an icon. And she is recognized nationally, and she's won national awards. When you get a time, I would say Google her, but that may date me. So do chat GPT on Joy. So as a follow-up question, early on, what were some of the messages that your family heard about home ownership as you were growing up? Was that a possibility for you? Jada, start.
So I must say that my parents were homeowners. And they had several homes here in Charlottesville. The last one is in the Fifeville neighborhood that is still owned by my family today. So they never spoke about that, about home ownership or anything. All we knew is what we saw, and that was working hard and keeping up things. Probably in that day and age, they just didn't say anything. It was like a secret, but they did make sure. My parents, I'm going to give you a story. My parents did divorce, and in the divorce decree, my father said the house is not to be sold. He said, because my children will need something to come back to. So as for that question, we didn't speak about it. We saw what we saw and we did what we did. In some Black homes, some things just won't, we just didn't speak about a lot of things. So much like I think the panel will talk about that, we just weren't taught those things. And so, because they probably didn't know themselves of how to explain it to us, but they were homeowners, so, and their home is still there. So, thank you.
So I'm originally from Kingston, Jamaica, and my parents moved here because they wanted that goal at the end of whatever, and so it also meant buying a home. So that's all I heard when I was growing up, is that they wanted to move to America so they can have a better life and become a homeowner. So I heard that a lot. And my mom worked hard. And she then relocated to Lakewood, New Jersey. That's where she bought a home and lived until she passed away. So yeah, I did hear that. But the picket fence thing was totally, totally different once she bought that home. It wasn't always a white picket fence, but that's what I used to hear when I was growing up.
Thank you for that. And knowing and hearing their stories, I'd also like to pitch it to the other two panelists as to what you could add to that conversation.
I didn't hear anything. I never had the experience of like people talking about home ownership. My grandparents owned their home, but it was not a part of the conversation. Sorry, I hold the mic like a rapper. I got it.
She is a rapper in her other life.
Yeah. Some call me the rapping realtor. But no, it wasn't a conversation, and I think that was a part of it. It's a lot of the things that what I learned, especially when I moved to Atlanta, is like if you don't see it or you don't know what you don't know. And so once I had moved to Atlanta, that's when I actually seen Black wealth in a whole way that I was like, oh, people that look like me are doing these things. They're owning businesses. Shout out to Smooth Moving. They're owning businesses. They are, they're doing these things, but I never seen it. So I didn't realize that I also could do that. So really a part of I think it's one of those stories where it's like, I didn't know. And then when I was looking for a new rental, and I worked at the bank, I had a great job, but it still wasn't a part of the conversation. It was just never there of being like, oh, I could own a home. And I went to move to get a rental, and I had a realtor actually have me fill out, I wanted to rent this house, and she had me fill out like a mortgage application, which I didn't know that's what I was filling out. Okay, so that's not okay, just so we're clear. Oh my gosh. And a little piece of me kicks myself though, because I'm like, the equity I would have if I would have got that house. But no, it just wasn't a part of it just wasn't a part of the conversation, unfortunately.
I appreciate that, and I think that that's a reality for a lot of us.
All right. I was trying to think of when I first started getting message. I don't think it was until I married a woman.
Hear him?
Can you hear me? Okay. There you go. There you go. I'll take notes. I don't think I received very many, if any, messages about home ownership growing up. It wasn't until I married my now wife that I became a homeowner by default. She was a homeowner. But I didn't know anything about that process. One of her best friends is here, Joey Conover, and she was really instrumental in walking me and her to a certain degree through that process. And without Joey, I don't know that it would have been it would have been a different language, right? Because we went to high school together. I've known her most of my life. It was an open conversation that I didn't feel silly asking the silly questions. But that was never on the plate as far as a generational instruction or guidance. Like this was the goal and this was what I was convinced I was going to be a renter my whole life. And that was fine. I didn't really question that. And so that conversation, but when it comes to, so I'm a journalist by training, and I do a lot of my work is based in research, specifically historical. And what I'm compelled by in each of these lived experiences is the pattern. And we can get into this a little bit more probably as we continue to talk, but there is a deep pattern. Homeownership is the way it is today. And buried within that story is also a rich history of Black property ownership that doesn't get as much attention as probably I think it deserves. And there's a lot of things that have diminished that Black property ownership over time. And so we can get into that too. But
Well, I wanted to, you're delving into a little bit about what we will talk about later, but I wanted to ask you, as a white man sitting on this panel and hearing the stories, the generational stories, and then the fact that of how important it was for African Americans to have ownership, but to not always know. And for you to have that access, always have access, and it not even really be a thing for you. So how would you, because we're here to learn, right? So how would you reflect, and I know your work, so you're in a lot of important spaces. So yes, you are. So and one thing about you is that we know the stories, right? But you bring the data. You bring the data that say we are not just saying this. So reflecting on their stories, and Allie's probably screaming, she's going off script. But how do you reflect in hearing their stories to the data that you have?
I think a lot of that is why I do the work that I do, is because I grew up hearing a lot of these same stories and reading the newspaper, looking at the news, reading whatever sort of history books that were being written. You wouldn't see that evidence and documented. And so, you know, that is, I think, a large part of what brought me to the African American Heritage Center was a desire to make sure that it was documented for the next generation. There was a rough understanding of what happened in Vinegar Hill, but even so, there were still these enduring myths that it was a slummed neighborhood, right? That this was a blighted neighborhood that deserved to be taken down in the 1960s. So there's a lot of work that still needs to be done to really shed a lot of sunlight on this pattern of behavior. And so, yeah, I mean, we can absolutely. I've got a 150-year history lesson prepared that I can condense into 3 minutes if we want to get into that. But no, I think you're exactly right that there is a need for lived experience, and it's a shame that data is needed to back that up because the lived experience is undeniable, right? And that's one of the things that, as a journalist, as somebody who is involved in public history, the oral history is gospel, right? That there is nothing one of the things, we made a film about Vinegar Hill, and one of the things that Mr. Inge, who ran the Inge's grocery store on the corner of 4th and West Main, where Tavern and Grocery and Awful Arthur's, right, that same building, Mr. Inge is giving an oral history in 1980, and he says, I think that if one were interested in going down to the courthouse and looking through the property records of people who owned homes that did not keep those homes up in Vinegar Hill, you would see one very prominent white property owner. And sure enough, he didn't name names. You know, it's 1980. He's a business trying to survive. That we went down to the courthouse and looked it up, and it was a former mayor. He was a former city councilor. His son was a former mayor and city councilor. They owned property all the way back through the Civil War in Charlottesville, and there was no housing code. And so in 1960, they didn't have to put in indoor plumbing or insulated walls. There was nothing to force that. And he rented exclusively to Black families at very, very low rates, but also in slum conditions, and there was nothing to enforce that. And sure enough, that came from an oral history, right? So that it wasn't in the documentation necessarily that we found it was through oral history. So it's these lived experiences absolutely that I treat as the guiding light.
Absolutely, and we appreciate the work that you're doing because unfortunately, our word is not always taken at face value, those oral stories, and to have you be able to properly document and provide that data that helps to justify that. Now, I'm going to pitch the next question over to Ms. Roxy about history, legacy, and mindset.
Yes, thank you, Lisa. I just want to throw a question out to the room. Can we agree that discrimination can be subtle? Can we also agree, right, we can agree that it's also very blatant. When I hear when I hear Miss Joy and also Jada speak about their experiences, the art of not knowing comes off as just a form of discrimination. Someone had the information but didn't share it with you. And so this,
That way.
it was designed that way. Yes, ma'am, you are absolutely right. But this question, again, as Lisa said, historical legacy and mindset. Charlottesville's history includes redlining, urban development, and displacement of entire neighborhoods. How have those injustices shaped the way families of color think about home ownership now? And I would like to start with you, Ms. Joy.
Oh my God. Redlining is still present. Covenants in this town is still present. There's certain places that if you don't have, it used to be the color, but now as if you don't have the income, you can't even live in those neighborhoods. You can't even live in that area. And that's a form of discrimination. It's about money. If my zeros is not like your zeros, you can't live. And I feel that some of it is about what's at the state level, but our city also have covenants about where they let developers build and do not build in other neighborhoods. So for me, redlining and it's still prevalent. And I mean, that's why my daughter could not buy a house in the city of Charlottesville. She works at UVA. She made pretty good money. And she could not find a house in the city of Charlottesville because I wanted to stay in Charlottesville to still continue to cause trouble. The good trouble. But she couldn't find anything. And even to keep it to the point where I could still don't have to drive that far, it was still expensive in Albemarle County. But this was, you remember, I could go on and on, but I'm gonna be respectful. But he's laughing. You know, the agreement that the Albemarle County and the city have, that's discrimination. And that was a sweetheart deal that was made that Charlottesville wouldn't annex. And now Albemarle County is sprawling. Charlottesville is fighting over 10 square miles of land and charging high price of the land because that's what it's all about, is about the land. But the developers also control some of the problem. And
You're right.
so it's redlining is still happening.
Just looks
It
different.
affects the school too, and zip codes.
So-
So go on.
Right. No, I appreciate your input. This conversation today is raw, it's real, and I appreciate all the panelists for bringing 100% truth. Jada, can I ask you the same question?
You sure can. So for me, much like Joy said here, what really makes me angry is we are getting pushed out of our own neighborhoods. I can't even buy a home in the neighborhood that I grew up in. And so what I really think that happens here is it's like the emotional weight, what has been bestowed upon us from the past, the culturally things that has happened to us in the past. So a lot of that, goes on, but it really makes me really angry when I see people uncolored come into our neighborhoods and purchasing these homes that, your childhood, where you grew up at, and you can't even, afford to do that. And you knew how precious this neighborhood was to you. And for my kids, they don't even know the neighborhood I grew up in. I was born and raised here in Charlottesville. My sons have been downtown twice. I have a 26-year-old and a 24-year-old. And that was to see Barack Obama and Snoop Doggy Dogg. And that's the honest God truth. Now, they may have been down there in their older years, for Fridays After 5 for the go-go bands or something. But in general, they've never, experienced the fun and the laughter and all of that we had on that downtown mall. So yeah, so I agree with you so much on that. And it's just hurtful sometimes that you see your own neighborhoods and you just feel so unwelcomed in your own neighborhoods. I literally drive by sometimes and with tears, because this is my home, and I just don't feel the same.
Would you like to share? The floor is yours.
I also think that sometimes I feel like the broader community doesn't understand what's happening because they're about them. They're not about others. And so I didn't have to live in public housing. Let me be clear. I'm a proud public housing resident. I raised my kids in public housing because it was what I could afford at that time, and I didn't have to sell drugs, and I didn't have to ask no man to pay my rent or
No,
nobody.
that's right.
So, and people look down on people who live in public housing or subsidy housing, but we have good people who come from public housing. We have good people. I see one in the room now. I'm not gonna call her name, but other than me, but they're good people. Some of them are lawyers, some of them are doctors, they're police officers, the whole 9 yards. So, and so it just pisses me off when people refer to us as those people, or they don't want anything. The difference is that you all, and don't take it personal, because I don't want none of y'all go saying or putting in the paper that I pointed you out and say you all. I'm just saying you all who lives in the community, you have these big houses with basements. The social issue goes in the basement. In our community, because the square footage is so small, the social issue spills out in the community. And a lot of times, the same thing happened in our community, happened in your community, it's just hidden. It's basically what I'm saying. But a lot of times, it's not the people who live there that is causing the social issue, it's other people who comes in that community. But we have good people who live in public housing. And it just makes me so angry. However, gentrification is killing our neighborhoods. People are buying little houses and turning them into $500,000 houses. And then it raised the property taxes. And then the people who have generational house like hers, they have to give it up because they can't afford the taxes. They might have 2 incomes in the house, but if someone get ill, that's a decrease. And I'm seeing people losing housing. The last thing I'm gonna say, Jeremy Kaplan should be given an award. I just wonder what's gonna happen if Jeremy was to pass away. Will his family continue? Because what that man does is he buy those houses up and he remodel them and he rents them back to the people who live in the neighborhood to keep the people in the neighborhood. Well, I just want to ask a question. If he can do it, why can't the city or other developers do the same thing? Can somebody just answer that question for me? Why? Money over people. That's what it all comes down to. money over people. I'm sorry.
Tasia, that could, Tasia, that could be a rap song. That was really real. I mean, a lot of real estate professionals don't think about it from that perspective.
Can I follow up on that?
Yes.
Just say some. Oh, okay.
Thank you, Jade. Yes, Tasia, please.
So one thing you all see why joy is joy. Like, right? Like literally, and it's a real conversation. And I think for me, when I think about these things, right, like we know what the issue is, but then what do we do about it? The system is the system. I've come to realize, as much as I do my best to push back on it, like what are the things that I can do as Tasia to be able to maneuver the system that we have? So with Piedmont Housing Alliance, I realized, I said, okay, we see these things all the time. What is it that I can do? I see what the system is, but maybe I can create programs to help people maneuver what's happening right now. So yes, like how we talk about like the prices are ridiculous. When for me, like I had first heard about the down payment loan program when I lived in Atlanta when I was considering buying a house. And my friend was like, girl, you can get this much money for free. I said, ain't nothing for free. I don't trust it. I'm good on it. I don't want, I did not trust it at all. And then the irony is, then I end up running the down payment loan program when I came to Piedmont Housing Alliance. And now I'm telling people like, hey, you can get this money, but with that being said, like the reason why I like being the director of programs is because I can create things to help people maneuver through these things. So it's like, yes, it's expensive. It is ridiculous. Just like what Jada said, I need $19,000 for a down payment loan. That was, I don't even know how many years ago, because now we know how much it is now that you need for a down payment. So I think a lot to myself of like, we see these unfair things happening, even as I see my clients maneuver through the system where some agents aren't showing people houses in this particular area. I hear that all the time. And then that's why I was like, at first I was selling houses and I got really into PHA. Then I started hearing that. I said, the streets need me. I got to start selling houses again. Golly, can't do it all. But really it's like to be able to be there and advocate for people and understand that like, this is why I do what I do, to create the opportunities. Like people, we are being pushed out of these neighborhoods. Even with my director's salary and selling houses, I can't afford to live in Charlottesville. That's why I live in the county. I would love to live in Charlottesville. I might want to be mayor one day, you know what I'm saying? Like, but I can't. But I think to myself of like, how can we combat what the issues are and what are the things we can create and how can we maneuver, because we know what the system is and we can work on that from a policy level, right? But while we're doing that, what are the things we can do locally on the ground to create programs for people to be able to help people maneuver through these systems?
Beautiful. And it was important to me, Tasia, I just want to let you know, for you to be here because you bring that perspective of being a program director with Piedmont Housing and being a licensed real estate professional. And you do great work in both areas. So thank you. I do want to pivot to Jordy because he is the man with all the data. Can you also answer that question?
Well, I mean, I want to pick up on so many things that everybody just shared, and that is, I was talking with Ms. Jada and Joy before tonight, and last night I went to the 10th and Page Neighborhood Association meeting, and I would say 90% of the people, residents in 10th and Page around the table at Legal Aid where they have their meetings, were homeowners. And they're in their 60s, 70s, 80s. And they are very, very worried about what is happening. What has already happened and poised to happen. So the folks that, for those that don't know, the folks that own the dairy market now own a considerable
Call his
stretch,
name.
a considerable stretch of road all the way down Preston Avenue, the laundromat, these parcels, and they've announced that they're going to start developing those into a 140-room hotel, 4-star hotel, and then a 278 apartment building that will be very similar to the 180 units that went
Chris
into the
Henry.
market. Chris Henry, but Stony Point, I think, is the development company name. That's happening along Preston. On the opposite side of West Main, y'all have seen the student housing that is being proposed behind West Haven, and adjacent to the Standard. That's, I think, another 300 and some units, but 708 beds.
A 12-story building.
12-story building. And then
humongous.
between 7th and a half Street, further down on West Main, between right behind First Baptist Church, between 7th and a half and 5th Street Southwest, there's another student high-rise that's going to take up, I think,
7-story building.
7-story building that'll be 2.5 square blocks essentially in size. And so this is, and then there's affordable. We don't know how they're defining affordable, but
That's
affordable
gonna be
units.
7-story too.
But the Wertland building on the corner of Wertland and 10th, right? It's gonna
Over
be
there
10
in
stories,
Albemarle
right?
Street.
So conservatively, we're talking about 1,000 units at market rate and above that will be added to one of the oldest historic Black neighborhoods in Charlottesville over the next
Two.
5 years. Rose Hill, right?
Rose Hill,
Excuse me, right,
Central
12th
Page,
12th and Rosser.
3 in
3, yeah,
Fifield.
and Fifeville, yep. And this is, I mean, we were talking about how Roxy said that discrimination, it can be blatant, but it can also be subtle, right? And everything I just described can be done under the letter of the law. There is nothing that needs special permission. It's all by right. And there's a large contingent of people saying we need more housing to house more people, right? That there's a problem with the housing stock. But the question that I think that we started talking about is what can be done? What are the mechanisms and the levers that actually stand a chance to make this not the ultimate second displacement out of Vinegar Hill that occurred in 1965. And so I just wanted to point that out because it was a recent meeting we attended last night, and that these things take all shapes and sizes, right? It's the generational knowledge of how to put your house into a trust. It's mortgage and down payment assistance, right? It's learning all of those rules, but then there's also this system. And one of the things that Ms. Joy does very effectively and has for decades is advocate. And it's showing up to neighborhood association meetings, showing up to city council to make sure that even though the system may not be fair and may be rigged, that's not going to go quietly. And you do see that. And so I want to just give voice to that there are people, I think, that support a fairer and more just system, and they're advocating even though they may not be the ones that you hear about the most. But that being said, the thing that brought me in partnership with the Heritage Center was knowing that there was no redlining map for Charlottesville. That bigger cities got redlining maps from the federal government in the 30s and the 40s, but we did not. And yet we know that discriminatory housing policies and practices were enacted, but we didn't have a blueprint for exactly where and at what point those policies were enacted. And so I started going to the courthouses and looking up where I knew to be historically white neighborhoods existed today, where they first found their point of origin, and found racially discriminatory clauses in all of those deeds. And so we started building a database of racial covenants in Charlottesville and Albemarle County, and essentially creating that map to show you historically from 1893
We should have bought that
in
map.
1968, and we can send it to everybody via email. But for about 75 years of some of the most intense home building period of time in Charlottesville and Albemarle that it had ever seen, racial covenants were inserted into thousands and thousands of deeds. And those stayed legal until 1968 with the passage of the Fair Housing Act. I mean, many homeowners still see them in their deeds. They're just not legally binding today in that same way. But this wasn't just discriminatory on the basis of race for the sake of not living next to somebody who you didn't like, right? Because what we also know is that through oral history, through lived experience, there is a pattern of investing or divesting in infrastructure in those neighborhoods. So we're talking literally about the creation of Charlottesville and Albemarle's water line and sewer systems. We're talking about streets that are getting paved or not. We're talking about potholes and trees getting planted. Every element of a quality of life that exists today is done through municipal involvement. And we have the records of people and neighborhoods petitioning the city government to get a water line and a sewer line extended to their neighborhood. And we have other examples like in Fifeville, Kellytown, and Lincoln Height of neighborhoods, Black neighborhoods, petitioning the city government to get an extension of a water line or sewer line and getting denied, rejected, or delayed by 10, 15 years plus. There's an example of Skanks Branch that flowed through 10th and Page neighborhood. And the Black newspaper at the time said that in Venable neighborhood, it was enclosed in jumbo-sized pipe because it was the most hazardous body of water in the city. But as it flowed down Cox's Road, where Hardy Drive and West Haven was built later, it was open. And it took a small child drowning in that in Skink Springs to ultimately subground it, right? But these things are not unknown to Black communities. And what do you think happens to your home's value and worth if you get a water line into your neighborhood, right? So this is a local government, not the federal government, but the local government
Local,
inflating
part.
generational wealth and investing.
that part.
And now we start to see the numbers, right? And so then the question becomes, well, what do we do with that? Is there a cause for repair? Are there avenues? Is a city government even thinking about that word reparation or repair in terms of how neighborhoods may need to be protected against these other displacement forces? So that, I think that's where at the Heritage Center, we always try to think of data and history as being important, but for what purpose, right? And I think that's really where we find alignment with everybody here, is that we're trying to make sure that people understand that this is not a one-off, that there's a long pattern, and that this is the most recent, and the actual names we give it or the mechanisms and the laws that allow it, they may fundamentally look like they're changing, but it's still enacting the same realities.
Thank you, Jordy. No, you're fine. Thank you. You know, I always laugh. I grew up at the corner of Prospect Avenue and Rock Creek Road, and it's just funny to me how I often hear that referred to as Fifeville. Like, they, you know, the pretty name put on it now. You know, once upon a time, it wasn't a place.
Well, you know who did that?
Did that?
It was the planning department. Susquehanna
course.
did that.
Right.
Oh, but anyway, when she came up, she said, when did this become Fifeville? You know, like, when did this become Fifeville? You know, I was like, girl, this still the hood to us. You know, they can call it what they want.
Yeah,
Uh,
that was created through Susquehanna Hoosier, who was in the planning department, and they started giving these neighborhoods like Belmont, West Haven, Fifield, whatever, because of how they would give the community development block grant funds. They would shift it, like 1 year Belmont would get it, 1 year Fifield would get it. So that was intentional. That was intentional.
Absolutely. I am going to ask this to Tasia and Jada. Have you seen mistrust or fear passed down through generations when it comes to banks, lenders, or government housing programs? Can you share what occurred and how do you help families overcome that?
I mean, I told you I didn't trust the free money when it was myself personally. Honestly, I think that one of the things that people are missing is the cultural aspect when you're even communicating with people and in a way that they actually fully understand. And so a lot of times people are using like the traditional jargon when you're talking to folks, and you start to lose people even within that. So I think a lot about one of the projects I led over in Prospect, where kind of led a renovation project, was working with trying to find folks specifically in that neighborhood to purchase these homes. It was a whole thing. And we were working with some folks over in Greenstone specifically, because surprisingly, like what they were paying for rent, they actually could own a home. Like it was about the same to enter into home ownership. But then there was so much fear and like distrust. And I think that when you have somebody that's either from where you from that can speak the language to you, that can break it down into you in a way that you actually do trust. Like if I'm talking about houses and I'm talking to Miss Joy, oh, it's a wrap. Like whatever she's telling me, like I've seen the work that she's done, she's in the community. And I think that's another thing that a lot of people are missing. And even as we're here, like talking to, agents or whoever, a lot of people want to come in places and sell houses, but you being in the space with the people, how can you support the people? How can you be one with the people? How can you understand the people that you are trying to serve, that you are attempting to serve? It's not just coming in and selling a house and then going getting your commission and going about your business until the next opportunity comes up. It's about really being in the communities. And I think that that the mindset is a big piece, because you hear over time like, okay, maybe buying a house is risky because if something goes wrong, I lose my job or I have to fix it or all of these things. It's the anxiety and the fear that kind of comes in the middle of the night. And so the conversations I have with folks is really just like breaking it down to them in a way that they fully understand and letting them know that they're going to be okay, but not all, but also once this is said and done, like I'm always a source that's here for you and to guide you through this process, and that they're, you know, not alone in it as a whole. But it is a whole mindset shift that has to happen because over time, you know, it's kind of a thing like you haven't seen or you hear all the horror stories, and I think all of that is intentional. You associate homeownership with and wealth with whiteness. You don't realize that's actually something that you can have and you can hold.
Thank you. Jada?
Well, I think Tasia like summed it up for us. So you put everything in there. Thank you. But yeah, so she did a great job of explaining that. So it's just trusting people that look just like you and know what you've been going through, and we can relate to them more. So I think that's another aspect of it, just, you know, being relatable, and so they can build trust up, you know. You want to build that trust with people, so that's important in our neighborhoods and our communities and things like that. But I agree with you totally, and thank you you really summed that up for us. So
Thank you to you both. And we are going to pivot over to Lisa. We talked about the past. We're going to talk about what's happening in real time.
And you all know she goes back and forth from Lisa to S. Lisa, right?
I did
And
I
what
don't know.
about
I don't know. But, you know.
S. Lisa? Somebody
S.
said it
Lisa.
over there. Okay. All right. Thank you all for your contributions to that conversation. We got real deep and it was honest. And that's what I wanted for us to have today. You're being vulnerable, you're being honest, truthful in the conversation. So, very much on that same pattern of what we were talking about. I'm going to pitch this to Jada and Tasia about what is it like when you've gone through the whole process of working with a family and they still don't qualify? Are there barriers and policies? You talked a little bit about policies. You're in a decision-making position. And that's the value of having certain people at the table to move the needle so that some of the traditional ways of financing and judging people's credit or whatever some of the criteria may be seen as barriers can be explained, sometimes understanding a person's story, right? When you have that manual underwriting instead of that AI component. I'm sure Tammy's looking at me crazy, but how that she's smiling back there, how that can impact a family's ability to truly get into home ownership. I said a lot, but Jada, are you ready to respond?
So working with, I work with PCLT, Piedmont Community Land Trust. So we do see a lot of things that happens that people, you know, run into these stumbling blocks of trying to get the monies and things that they need to be a homeowner. So I just think that I don't know what goes behind closed doors. I can only hear what they tell me. If you're Caucasian, I don't know what they tell them. It could be two different stories. So I'm not sure. I'm just hearing the story that I see people like myself, what they say. We did have someone to come in one time, and she had a problem, and they actually told her that she needed to sell her car and buy a cheaper car. I was kind of, you know, it kind of threw me off track a bit because I thought if you sold your car, now you're struggling to trying to figure out how to be a homeowner. Now you got to figure out, you know, how to sell your car to buy a cheaper car. All these processes are not easy. They're not easy for us. So those are some things that I've seen that come through, you know, and you hear these stories. So exactly. I mean, and if you're selling your, and this what gets me. The people can tell them exactly where to go to sell a car. Go to CarMax and sell your car. So you know, if they're telling you where to go, this is not a conversation that they just had with this person. They've had this conversation with others. So that's kind of a, you know, a question mark in my mind, but Tage, you can sum it up for me. Thank you.
Yeah, that's what I'm here for. Sum it up for you, Jada. So, all right. One of the things is education. That's the biggest piece is education. And I'm not talking about education of being, because everybody thinks like, oh, you got to go tell the people. And if they sit through these financial literacy classes, then they'll know everything and then they can become homeowners. And that's, no, I'm talking about like the people that are experts that are in the space to truly be experts in the space so you can actually advocate for clients. We see, I mean, Navy Federal Credit Union had a whole thing where they had like a black lender and a white lender, apples to apples, and where like there was I mean, you know what I'm talking about, as Lisa, and where the black clients that were trying to purchase the house, like they got denied or they had all these extra hoops to jump through. I mean, it literally was apples to apples, like that happens. So what I have done in pretty much in maneuvering some of these things is like one, like I know the ins and outs, and I don't want to say like, okay, I'm a mortgage lender, but I have taken classes to get my residential mortgage lending certificate. So, but I'm not a lender, but I know enough to know to be dangerous. But when I'm having conversations with my clients, it's like I can ask the questions to push back to gain the clarity of what's really happening, right? I see it sometimes too, where like I have somebody I'm working with right now, and it's like they were told that they needed to go back and amend their taxes, and then now they have to pay all this money before they can like buy their house next week. It's like, what is happening here, right? Like, and so it's like really asking the questions, having the understanding. And then one of the things too, like there was a program that I created in order to have funding for clients so like they can use it in multiple different ways. So it's like, okay, you can have this funding, you can utilize it in order to buy down the interest rate. You can use it to actually pay off your debt ahead of time to increase your credit score before you actually close to be prepared to buy a house. You can use it for your down payment, and you can also use some of this funding for your reserves to go into your savings account because you didn't blew all your money trying to prepare to buy this house. So it's like my thought process a lot of times is just like being behind the scenes and like really just using the strategic thinking piece. Because the reality of it is that like in order for people to be successful in this space is like you have to do a lot of program stacking is what has to happen, right? So I'm creating programs to help people reduce their debt. I'm creating programs to help people pay off judgments and to increase their credit score. And I'm also working to create programs to help them buy that interest rate. And then like even things like what Frank shared about like the Spark program or the First Home Dream, like you have to use all of these things to make home ownership affordable. And again, like we see people all the time that, they do everything that they're supposed to do and then they still get turned away. And it takes a lot, especially for people of color, to even want to go through the process. Like you get denied all the time. You're afraid to run your credit. Just for some basic stuff, you're afraid to run your credit. So it takes a lot to even be able to get somebody to the point where they want to enter into home ownership because you've been told no so many times in so many ways. So I think it's just, for me, I think it's just the education of like, for the folks that are experts in the space to fully be experts in the space. Like, if you're a realtor, take the extra initiative to dive deeper, to fully help your clients. Think about what their budgets don't going to be. Just because the lender said, hey, they can get a house up to $400,000. Do not take them buy a house for $400,000. Find out what's comfortable for them. You know what I'm saying? Ask the questions, push back, and really have those people in your pocket that are fully experts to be able to help your person get across the board.
Thank you. I totally agree with what both of you all said. And I think you pretty much answered the second part to that. My question about invisible barriers in terms of credit and things that you've seen that individuals coming to purchase a home really don't know about, that may be barriers. So reflecting back on what Jada and Tasia has said, Joy and Jordy, what can you add to that perspective? Joy?
Again, it started out about, for me, is education. It all leads to education. And I think each and every one, you asked the question and education was in it, all of it. Again, like I said, I went to an insurance class and that's what perked me. I'm a kind of a person, when I get nosy, I really look into stuff. And that's when I started looking into understanding the whole racket about becoming a homeowner, because you have to have X amount of money. Yeah. And the other thing for me is that home ownership, they don't teach you about how to use the equity in your house to live off of. And I don't want to offend anybody in here, but white people know how to use the equity in their house more than Black low-income residents, because they live in the house for 30 years. But then, when I was going, I went to Walker High School, and I have this girlfriend who it seemed like every 5 years they were moving. And I was like, oh, y'all rich. But they weren't rich. They was using the equity in their house to achieve what they need to achieve. But we don't teach, that is not taught to, not even my parents, right? The programs that you're doing is wonderful. I'm glad that you are creating those programs. The reason why some of our folks doesn't participate in that program, they have life challenges. They have addiction, either to a man, either to the that paid. The predatory lenders is out there. We have these daily pay. We have people who are working. If y'all don't know what daily pay is, because I had a client who educated me about what daily pay is. Miss Joy, I know how much money I make by the end of the day. And so I just draw it out. And so when they keep going back and drawing that out, it's getting a fee. You're not getting the full amount of money you want because they're charging you a fee. And then when you get your paycheck, you don't have enough money to pay. So the credit is always gone. And these predatory lenders are connected to employers. Can you let that make sense to me?
This question to me.
It's connected to employers. So I'm not going to tell Tay not to use payday lending because that's how she is surviving. We don't know what's going on. And so those are the invisible challenges that I see, is that people do things to survive. And so participating in her program, we talked for about 2 years now, right? And I have 4 people that's been sitting on the shelf for 2 years to sign a release so they can get in her program. I only got 2 to do it. 2 years. And so the fear is real. Education, I have to say, it's education. And so education is not you give people a flyer or a pamphlet. Education is you going in the neighborhood, you get to know the people, you start having a conversation, they figure out what their goals are, and you help them to achieve one goal, and you help them to achieve the second. It's not about you just passing out a flyer. You got to get to know people, and people is afraid of going in neighborhoods these days. You are not going to get, and some people really don't want to go in those neighborhoods because they don't want those people educated, and they don't want people to be empowered. I just said to someone the other day, stop using that word empowerment, because it doesn't mean what you say it means. You want me to be empowered for you, but you don't want me to be empowered for myself. And so education is empowerment. And when you all put something on a flyer and just stick it on the door, you're not empowering that person. You're just doing your job. And so what I would say to, what we can do is to figure out a way how we educate people on these things. It's not just about home ownership. It's also about buying a car, because that's a whole nother game. It's also, just about buying insurance or getting health insurance. It's all about education. So I think those are the invisible pieces that I see, and having programs such as yours, and having even Habitat. Habitat is not in the room. I don't see any back from Habitat, but even with Habitat, my son wants to become a homeowner because now his sister is a homeowner. Yeah, you know, and yeah, he came see y'all, but again, he need to make more money. So he, right now, Habitat is the road that he's gonna have to take because that's what's gonna work for him. And that's how you can help people. It might not be the traditional going to the bank or whatever. It might have to be a program that you go through, but you gotta educate people. So those are the invisible things that I see is that, we're just not educating people about becoming a homeowner.
I appreciate that feedback, and I am even more impressed and more appreciative of Tasia being in the position of making decisions. And I think that to truly move the needle of this conversation, we need more people of color sitting at decision-making tables with lived experiences. Too often, the people with the power making decisions have absolutely no lived experiences, but want to come into neighborhoods and make decisions. And if you do not have people at the table, you will get resistance. You will get resistance. So, Joy, your last comment is great to pitch it back over to Roxy in terms of changing mindset and building trust. Trust is a powerful word, and you oftentimes need to understand the local history before you can truly bring about change. Because if you don't have trust and you continuously want people to move and come along with you, and I'm sure, Jordy, you've encountered some of this, and I'm sure not everybody has trusted you showing up to be the storyteller of our information. So, Roxy, I'm gonna pitch that on back over to you.
Thank you, S. Lisa. I just want to, if you don't mind, just show of hands, how many of my colleagues actually have that conversation with your clients about equity, how the house will perform for them? Like, are we educating our clients on that level? That is a common conversation for me. We will walk into a house, this is not gonna perform for you in 5 to 7 years. That is great because Ms. Joy has mentioned a couple of times in show, so is Jada, the absence of information and that education piece that is really important for us to know and share. But back to the script. Sure.
I think the other thing, Ms. Joy made me think about it because it's been something I've been trying to set with and figure out around preserving the equity. So I think what happens is a lot of times we get like, we're lucky enough that I got my grandma's house now, but maybe grandma didn't know that, hey, we need to clean these gutters every so often. We need to keep the upkeep of this house. So then you get handed over a home that's not in the best situation. And then that's where your wholesalers or investors come in and they slide right on in there. So I think the other educational piece too that I don't feel like I hear enough people talking about is how do we actually preserve the equity? And I think that's in ways of the upkeep of the home, but also we were just kind of talking about it about the estate planning, all of those other things too of how we actually preserve equity. So that's another conversation to have with your clients. When you're in the process of even closing, they never owned a home before, make sure that they have their ducks in a row around those things too and that they're equipped for that.
Thank you. I feel proud to be a realtor alongside you. For those of us working in housing or lending, what should we do differently when we encounter communities we want to serve? And just as importantly, what should we stop doing? Miss Joy.
Can you
Absolutely.
read that slowly?
I will. Did I say it fast? I'm sorry. For those of us working in housing or lending, what should we do differently when we enter communities we want to serve? And just as importantly, what should we stop doing?
I think, who is the we? The realtors?
The professionals, lenders, realtors.
Okay, because I was gonna go left. All right.
You can take us left. You can take us left.
Oh, I think building relationships. Building relationships for me are getting to know people. Like, get out of your box. Step out of your box. And the reason I say that is there's some people that I've encountered that at first glance, I'm like, I'm not feeling your aura. Not feeling that aura. But then there's another part of me that says, put that aside. Let me have a conversation. Let me get to know that person. And then we end up being the best of friends. And or I can tell you, let me just share something real quick because I know we're getting short on time. So there was this lady who was working in the, I can't pronounce it, but at Parks and Rec that does the flowers. And so West Haven, I don't know, Daryl Jordan, I don't know, somebody else, I don't know if anybody know, but when you drive through West Haven, if you didn't, I'm talking about hard to drive, public housing. If you used to drive through it when I was going to school, the grassy area on the right side was nothing but dirt. Dirt. Just dirt. Oh, yeah. And when the wind blow, it just whirl around. And so when I moved in West Haven, I moved in West Haven in 1983. It took me 2 years before I became nosy. And then when I became nosy, the seniors asked me to go to a city council meeting to read a statement. And I said, okay, I'll read the statement. And then I read the statement at city council. And the next thing I know, reporters and the cameras is showing up at my house. Right? Because that's how I got involved. It was because I read a simple statement. I didn't know that was going to be my journey. But anyway, the first thing, there was a lady, Miss Austin, who used to tell me about Gospel Hill, and she used to tell me about Vinegar Hill, and she would tell me about places where, has just gotten decimated by the other culprit, UVA. And she and and Lord of Jesus, my thought went out the door. Culprit. I know, huh? But anyway, this is.
Get out your bubble.
I'm gonna do it. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's what confused. I should have never mentioned them. I should have never mentioned them. It just took my thought away. But oh my God. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. See, you're gonna be my best friend. See, she helped me. And so Miss Austin wanted a beautification committee. And she said, Miss Joy, can you call one of those, it was garden clubs, and see if they could bring us some flowers? And I said, I don't know no garden clubs. So someone said, call Parks and Rec. And so I called Parks and Rec. And this lady showed up at right when I was getting my kids to go to school. And so I'm making sure everybody is getting out the door or whatever. And so the kids say, hey, mama, a white woman is down here to see you. And she told me the story, and she said, and I said, tell that white woman to sit down and I'll be right downstairs. And so when I got downstairs, it was her. And she said, well, I'm from Parks and Recs, and I'm just here to talk to you about flowers. I said, well, I didn't know they were going to sing you, but let's go. So I went and got Miss Austin. And when I got Miss Austin, we walked around, and Miss Austin, the senior, was basically giving her idea of what she would like to see, right? So then she invited us to come over to the greenhouse. So I got a couple of seniors to go over to the greenhouse to plant flowers. And then once we did that, she told us about how to plant, how you lay the shovel down and you put one flower here and there. And then they decided to go to the quarry. She took us to the quarry to get rocks. And right to this day, those rocks are still planted there with grass there. And then we had several garden clubs people who I got to know, didn't know they existed, who came in every year and would plant flowers. Now, that was a different mindset. Now, Kay and I are still friends, right? But she was afraid. She told me, I was afraid to come to West Haven. And after I heard you say, tell her to sit down, I was like, this is not gonna work. But she taught me about flowers. She's taught a lot of people about flowers. And she even said to me, I had to get out my box because she met different people, good people. She built a relationship with people. And we don't do that. We just have to get out of our box. And when I met Lisa, I was like, I don't know about that Lisa. She would say one thing and I would be like, no. But as time go on, I really saw that she cared. We were just coming from a different angle. She was coming from it from home ownership, private housing. I was coming from it from low income housing and public housing. But we were taking the same train. We was going up the same lane. And so because of that, what I was feeling, I left it outside. And sometimes we have to we have to drop our ego and move forward. And so those are the kind of things I think that just need to happen. I might not like that person, but I will work together to make that change. And then the last thing is advocacy. All y'all in this room got power. All you got to do is show up. You got to show up to the board of the Albemarle County Board of Supervisors and show up at city council meeting. You all have power. You can help to advocate on behalf of those folks who doesn't understand and doesn't know. Because y'all, I'm assuming, there's no what to say about assumption, but I'm assuming that all y'all in here know how either have homes, business, and know how to make money. You got folks who's living in these communities that is being gentrified, who have no knowledge about what is happening to them. So you all have the power to change something. To answer what Jody was asking, what can we do? You all can help to do something. Advocacy, education, helping to come up funding programs, that kind of stuff, because it takes money to fund these programs and hire people from the neighborhood. That part. Okay, I'm gonna be quiet.
I just want to say too, when you do come into these neighborhoods and do talk to these people,
Not these
I'm sorry, I take that back. The community, enter as a partner, not experts.
Right.
Enter as a partner, not experts. And let them lead. Let the community lead. Let them carry the message. Let them be the ones that speak. So that's all.
I was just going to say
Oh,
to the real estate professionals in the room, and I know as Lisa and I are heavily involved, but we make good money in the Charlottesville area, and I think the Charlottesville area deserves for us to give of ourselves. We owe it to the residents, the community, to give back in some sort of way. So I hope we all are participating in that. As Lisa, we are short on time, so can we pivot to Q&A? Just
Yes,
so
we
can
can,
give
but
the
I
audience
want to reinforce one thing, and they answered the question, the
Right,
very
they
next
did.
question.
Right, they did.
About shifting power and listening first, coming into the communities not to educate, but to learn and to listen. And there was a question that I had. I've lost it somewhere. Okay. Well, basically, it was about the school systems requiring financial literacy in the classes, and how can we add home ownership to that?
So I went to Lane High School, and we had introduction to business when I was there. And they took that away, just like home ec. They took that away. And I think introductions to business taught me how to write my first check. Yeah. And yeah, we learned about finance. Yes. Yes. So I think a lot of things that has been taken out of the school needs to be put back into the school. And I think that's where it starts from.
Can I ask you to stand up because we want to make sure we include even people who may not hear as well.
Hi, everybody. I'm Joey Conover. I'm a realtor with CAAR here. And I've got 2 kids in the city schools right now. And I'm actually glad to see that the state of Virginia requires, sorry, I don't talk into a microphone very often. They require personal finance, but I don't know what that curriculum is. And I do think that is an interesting place that maybe we could try to volunteer to go into those classes or see what that, if it's a state curriculum, what it includes. And I think as you talked about, like, it's not just home ownership, it's building your credit score and understanding estates. And I mean, there's a lot of stuff, you know, that I think, yeah. But anyway, I was just kind of curious if you think Black high school students, that's a place that they would trust information if they, you know, if their parents maybe aren't passing that info on because they don't have it, if you think that's a good source. But anyway, that's a long question.
I think it's all about how you do it, right? Like I did career day and I brought DJ equipment to teach the kids about being a realtor. They probably went home and was like, Mom, hi. But it's all about how you do it. And that's why I keep mentioning culture. Like I keep mentioning culture, and maybe that's like a buzzword that like people are like, what does that really mean? I think it's like all about your approach to it in a way that's like interesting, fun, that they actually want to do. What kind of music are they listening to? What gets them excited, right? Don't just come in there. And I think that's the other thing too, because we can't do it all. We can't do it all. It really takes this whole effort to do all of these things. But I think it's all about your approach. And even I wanted the other thing too, when you're like with the kids, because Tage love the kids. I love the kids. With the kids and in the communities of showing up as yourself and just being completely authentic. I think that's another thing. People can smell it on you if you're not showing up and being authentic about what you're there to do and what it's really for. But yeah, I think it's necessary, and I'd love to be a part of conversations around that too.
I also want to just share with you all right quickly is that right now, West Haven have residents who are sitting at the table and planning. Actually, I was supposed to be there, but I came here. And they said, Ms. Joy, where you going? I said, I'm going to talk about housing somewhere. But anyway, they're helping now to redesign what West Haven is going to look like. So there is yeah, and I can't invite y'all to the meetings, but without the residents' consent. But I'm just saying there are opportunities. South First Street is being built. 12 women met on Sunday for 3 years to learn about critical slope, windows, codes, the whole 9 yards. And right now, phase 1 is done and phase 2 is almost done. If you drive down, it was designed by women, 12 of them, public housing women. Yeah, and 6th Street is the same thing, and now it's West Haven. And they meet on Thursdays. Y'all can drop by. You know, I can probably get you all in the room, but if y'all just let me know, you know, through Lisa or whomever, just come and watch. I didn't think those 12 women could do it. I underestimated them. And they presented in front of city council. They presented at the planning commission. Planning commission, I think that's the first time they ever see that many poor people. I'm serious. They were just amazed. They were just sitting there clapping. So there's always opportunity for, and then we have a youth program that's going on. And Ishmael, that room is just packed with kids. And if you want to start from the community, just get in touch with me. I will get you in touch with and we can start. We can create. She created a program. Y'all, all the realtors in here, we can put money together and do something to teach the kids, if they won't do it in the school, about equity and housing.
Pass around a collection plate. We needed a collection plate.
Yeah.
What,
Church now?
what, I want to hear what other questions people have.
Any other question? Okay.
Hi, I'm Cynthia. I've had a lot of aha moments, let's just say, today. I've had a lot of aha moments. And I just want to share one thing. I mean, you guys are amazing.
Thank you.
And you do extraordinary work. Look at this man here with Virginia Housing. He has these amazing programs. Wouldn't it be great if you could put together seminars where people could come and learn about what they could do to be able to buy a home?
I'm open. I'm open to any ideas, long as you're gonna fund it.
Here's the man right here.
Yeah, Frank. No, Frank is the man.
As
Listen,
long as you gonna fund it, I don't have no money.
Yeah, if you don't know, that's very real. Like, seriously, when I first started, we would meet, like when I first started PHA, I remember he was one of the first people that I worked with, and is always pushing behind the scenes. But I will say, like, at PHA, we do have spaces where we are, like, we do like down payment loan, educational things. We're doing webinars all the time. We're having a thing here, a realtor mixer to come. Don't stop me in the hallway, tell me about how the client you try to get them to this, and that. No, come to the realtor mixer, come learn, get educated on the programs. But we are a pass through for some of the programs due to some of the great work that he does.
Really good guy.
Yeah, he is.
Smart. You guys need to connect.
Okay.
Okay. So I mentioned to you at the very beginning of the program tonight about the financial support that we provide to home buyers. Down payment assistance, closing cost assistance, interest rate assistance. In addition to that, we are fully committed to the idea of home buyer education. So we already provide substantial free home buyer education resources. It's online, it's free. We also offer in-person classes around the state too, and we're looking to develop that even more. So it's there. So we have home buyer education that is for like pre-home buyers to prepare home buyers for what is necessary to be ready, to be mortgage ready, to be able to purchase a home. Everybody should take it. Realtors should take it, so you'll know what it's involved in it. Every home buyer should take it, whether they're getting a Virginia housing loan or not, because it will teach anybody looking to buy a home the ABCs or just the basic building blocks of what you have to know, what you have to do to be able to get into the home. Everybody kind of knows that because we make all of our home buyers take this class if they're going to get our assistance. What's less known is that we have an after closing home buyer education class. It's also online. It's also free. And it teaches the new homeowner all of the things that they need to know as a homeowner, because they don't inherently basically know that stuff on their own. Somebody has to educate them, and we have those programs in place now to help with that. And finally, I would say we are always looking to think outside the box. We are taking our education classes to some of the colleges around the Commonwealth right now so that we can be proactive in delivering that information, to college students now. And we are looking, we have a lot of people that work at Virginia Housing that we will do outreach, and we will, if you come up with an idea or if you want to plug us into some type of effort to take home buyer education out to the streets, out to the masses or whatever, all you have to do is ask us. And
I'm asking.
Well, let me give you my card. We will work with you. And I think this night could be a watershed moment where we connect resources with needs. I am really convicted by the thought that everybody knows that there's a lot of needs.
Yeah.
fewer people, but still a lot of people know that there's a lot of resources there. The problem is that there's a disconnect. The people over here that have the needs don't know about all the resources that are already available. And many times the people that don't know it are the influencers, the realtors and the lenders and such. They don't know what the resources are. So home buyers are either it's harder for them to buy a home than it needs to be, or they're shut out of being a homeowner altogether. If we can connect the resources with the needs, I really believe that could make a significant contribution or a significant improvement in the performance of this, where we're going to get more home buyers into their homes, especially minority home buyers. That's what we're committed to do. So I hope this will be a watershed night, and that we might make that connection and accomplish that.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you have a program for after someone buy their house, because I know a lot of people who needs that even right now. So I wasn't joking when I said I'm asking, because I think it's very much needed.
I'll be your best friend.
I think
You are my best friend.
the one thing I will add too, just one thing I'll add, sometimes we come to a space like this and then we get all pumped up and inspired and excited. And then 2 days later, you never follow back up on any of the things that you hear about or that you thought that you were going to do. So I would say, have an accountability partner you see in here. Make sure you follow back up and take advantage of those things.
And I don't have a business card, but my email is joyskijohnson@gmail.com. JOYSKI Johnson@gmail.com. Just send me an email. I'll show up anywhere as long. And I just want you all to know that we didn't talk about gentrification. We didn't talk about the student housing, but that's a problem too.
Okay, thank you for your questions. We appreciate that. Our cutoff time was 7:15, and I'm trying to keep everybody on task, handing it over to Kelly. But I know that we have talked about, I'm gonna steal a quick second. We've talked a lot about housing and how to show up and talk about all these programs. I also want to take the time to mention the Realtors Board of Charlottesville, which is an organization that was recently started and founded by me, as Allie was talking about in the beginning. And that is a lot of real estate experts of color, but everyone is welcome. You can have all these great ideas, and sometimes you need to look a certain way to walk into these communities. That's just the real hard reality of it all. So partner with us. And Frank is also a member of the Realtors Board of Charlottesville. So he is truly committed to housing for all. I'll hand it over to you, Kelly.
No.
Thank you.
Me?
Go ahead.
I'm just playing. No. But I just wanted to add that the name of this symposium is so fitting, Equity in Motion. This work, these conversations don't stop. We need to commit to, being advocates and being a voice for people who have no voice or have less of a voice. So I just want to highlight Equity in Motion, because that is a very touching name for this event. And, I look forward to a follow-up. Thank you.
Thank you. And Dave's
Just a real quick announcement, following up on Tasia's comment earlier. I'm Dave Norris with the CAAR Foundation. We have 2 educational events coming up. May 18th, you'll all be getting an email about it tomorrow if you're on the CAAR email list. We're going to be co-hosting a realtor mixer here at CAAR, so you can come and learn about all the great resources at Piedmont Housing Alliance, including, they're a great front door to a lot of the resources that Frank is talking about, Virginia Housing. So you'll get an email about that. May 22nd is our next educational event, where we're going to be talking about public housing redevelopment with Joy Johnson, John Sales, Ashley Davies. It's going to be a fascinating discussion, learning about all the great work that's been going to transform our public housing, resident-led. It's really great work, so thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you all very much. I'm super excited to see all the connections and relationships that are being built tonight. Thank you all so much for being here. Joy, Jada, Tasia, Jordy, Roxy, Lisa. We can't thank you enough for being here. Housing, yes, thank you. Housing inequities aren't just national headlines, they affect real people and neighborhoods here at home. We appreciate you providing us with the opportunity to better understand where inequities persist and how to address them together. On behalf of CAAR and the DEI committee, we would like to provide each of you with a token of appreciation. I have a card for each one of you. Tasia, thank you for being here. Miss Roxy. Jada, you're welcome. Miss Joy. Jordy. Thank you. And S. Lisa, thank you all so much. Please give them a hand. At this time, if I may ask everyone to please either move to the pre-function area or to the back of the room so we can transition this front part into a dance floor. We're going to have Reggie start playing and have some dancing. We've got some clack fans to hand out. Thank you for attending Equity in Motion, a Fair Housing Symposium. Enjoy the rest of the night.